pipe is used to convert the value into percent and display in a percent format, right? For converting the values into percent and display in percent, we have this percent pipe. So if any value is present here, suppose let's take any value. So we have some values. Suppose sales is a number, and in the sales number we have some 0.26, that is the value, and I want to display in a percentage format. Then wherever you are displaying, suppose I will just put a heading here, and we are writing sales, and on that you can apply the percent pipe. Actually it is 0.26, and this is the percent pipe, and percent pipe is going to convert that into in a percent format and display. So let's see how to apply that. Sales is a value. Where is it? Sales. And here, yeah. Now when we display this sales in a percent local, okay, so sales doesn't have, where we declared it here only, spelling sales, where is it? Sales is a number, and in that some value, okay, and I am printing the sales here, sales value, it is 0.26. I am applying a percent pipe to this. And you can see it will display in percent form. That means it converts the value into percentage and it will display in percent. For only that purpose, you have this percent pipe, converting the value into percent. Now, this is simple. Suppose I have given sales is a number, and it is like 0.25, something like this, and we want to display in a percent sales. We can apply percent pipe on that. That is just to display, convert values into percentage. These are all built-in pipes. These are all the built-in pipes available with Angular. Now, here some important questions are there. In interviews related to Angular, some important questions are there. The first regular question you will come across in Angular interviews is, so what what are pure and impure pipes? Impure pipes. This is very common question in interviews. Actually, the term pure and impure are not introduced by Angular. Angular haven't introduced this pure and impure. Our developers classified it. That means some terms you will come across in software technology which are not origin by the software, which are generally used by developers. That means developers give some names, some shortcuts. Originally, people who built Angular, they haven't classified, but our developers classified the pipes into two categories: pure pipes and impure pipes, just like the concept mutable and immutable. That means actually impure pipe can impure pipe cannot change the value. Impure pipe can change the value, whereas pure pipe cannot change value, cannot change the value, it can apply only format. Impure pipe can change the values, so pure pipe cannot change the values. You have seen all these pipes we learnt. Now can you tell me, out of these, which one is a pure pipe, which one is an impure pipe? Pure pipe means which can change the value. Uppercase, lowercase, title case, they cannot change the value. The value will be same. Number, it also doesn't change the value. Value is same. Currency also, it will not change the value. Date also will not change the value. Value are same. JSON also will not change. Slice can change. Because slice can extract only what you want and display. I-18 select also can change, because it will change according to the city. Yesterday you saw that. Value is not same. Plural also can change. It changes according to the length. Is it 0 or 1 or 2? So slice, I-18 select, plural. What about percent? Is it a pure pipe or impure pipe? So impure pipes means they can change, right? So what is percent? Is it impure or pure? Percent, you saw that it was 0.25. The value is changed into 0.26. That means it is what kind of pipe? It is an impure. Remember, impure pipes can change the value. That means example for impure pipes, we have slice, we have I-18 and select, we have I-18 and plural, and we have percent. These pipes are called impure. That means it is not any classification. But our developers have this classification. That is the reason sometimes in interviews you may face such questions which you never learnt in Angular, but people are using those in their development. That means Angular haven't designed, because it's an open source community. In open source community, you will come across with such terms very regularly, because Developers use their own terms. So that is one regular question which regular Angular don't have actually. So what are pure and impure pipes? So difference between pure and impure. Impure pipe can change the value, pure pipe cannot change the value. That is the difference. Next, another question in interviews. So what is chaining of pipes? What is chaining of pipes? That is also not a big concept actually. Chaining of the pipes is nothing but so configuring value with multiple pipes. Multiple pipes is chaining. That means this question may be asked in another way also. Can we apply multiple pipes to data? Can we apply multiple pipes to any value? So for every value, multiple pipes are not suitable. That means chaining of pipes is nothing but actually chaining of pipes, it's very common, you can do it. That means multiple pipes can we use or not, right? That is the point. For example, suppose here we have some title. So we have some title and it is a string and we are displaying shopping cart details like this we are using. So here I am writing, I want to put that here, shopping cart details, and here I am accessing the title and you can see the title is shopping cart details. Now here I am applying a pipe called uppercase and I am applying another pipe called slice. I am extracting from 0 to 8, then it is going to handle both. That is nothing but chaining of pipe. That is nothing but chaining of pipe. That means you are applying multiple pipes. So is it possible to apply chaining for all types of pipes? No. That depends on the pipe that you are using and the data you are using. It's not possible to chain pipes on every data, right? That means can I use number and currency? No, because currency and number have same features, only currency symbol will be changing. So chaining of pipe is not possible for every type of data. So that depends on data and that depends on the pipes, right? So if anyone asks the point like can we apply multiple pipes, of course you can apply, and this is chaining of pipes. Configuring value with multiple pipes is called chaining of pipes. In some interviews they ask like what is a parameterized pipe? What is parameterized pipe? Already we learned that that's not a big point, right? Generally some pipes are parameterless. They don't have parameters. That means without any options. Like uppercase, lowercase, title case, they don't have any options. They don't have any options. So if you can create a pipe with some options, then it is called parameterized. That means, for example, number, it will accept the parameter. Parameter is how many integer, how many decimal places. So you have pipes like slice, it will accept index, start index, end index. So these are parameterized pipes. Parameterized pipe is nothing but, so it refers to a pipe so that can accept options, and modify the functionality. So functionality, that is actually the pipe. Because you know already, if anybody asks like function name, and why you need parameters for a function. So parameters are required for a function to modify the function, not to pass parameters. Right? The purpose of parameters in a function is to modify the function. So that is the main reason of parameters. So what is the purpose of parameters is modifying. So technically the pipes can be parameterized. Now, if anyone asks like, can we have multiple parameters? Can we have multiple parameters? So of course you can have any number of parameters. You can have any number of parameters, any type of parameters. That is not a question at all. These are silly questions, but still you will face these type of questions in interviews. Because sometimes people ask these also to understand, do you have any experience in creating such pipes? So parameterized pipe, multiple parameters. So we can do that. It's not a big issue. We'll see. Now, these are very regularly asked questions. And of course, architecture, you know, how to create a custom pipe. How to create a custom pipe, we already discussed. One more time I will show you how to create a custom pipe. So by creating a class that implements pipe transform. You have to create a class that implements pipe transform, right? That is pipe transform. By creating a class that implements pipe transform. So if any class is implementing pipe transform, it will do that. Pipe transform, contract, and transform. Transform is the method. Transform method. Already I told you that pipe transform is a contract, is an interface, and transform is a method that defines the functionality. Now let's see how we can configure, how we can define the custom pipe. Already I showed you. Let's see how you can define the pipes, custom pipes. Already one example I showed you, sentence case pipe. Sentence case pipe. So another example I will show you. Sentence case pipe is parameterless, right? What we have to do first, add a new folder into app. So by name, the folder name we will give as pipes. Pipes is the folder. After adding the pipes folder, add a new file that is a sentence case .pipe .ts, and in sentence case pipe ts, this is the logic. So this is the logic, sentence case pipe. Already I showed you this, and here we have to use our JavaScript functions for this. Already I told you that pipe have to import which one? Pipe transform and pipe decorator. And transform method will take your data and it will handle it. Now important is here we need to apply this. One more option is there. Next option is register. Register your pipe in app.module.ts. Where to register? In declarations. We will have declarations where we register our component. There itself we have to register. That is sentence case pipe. That is what we have to register. So in declarations our component will be available, right? This is fine. After configuring, so the pipe, Now you can use this for your data. That means now you can use the pipe. So anywhere you have a title, which is a string, and you have some text, some welcome to some pipes like this, and here we can apply title. And what is our pipe? Sentence case. Sentence case is the pipe name. Pipe name will be the marker name, right? Whatever the name you have given for this sentence case. So we have to just apply that sentence case pipe here, right? This is already I showed you in the beginning, right? Let's see one more pipe, how we can create a pipe with parameters, how we can define parameters. Let's see. We will see another example. So custom pipe for sorting. Suppose we will create a pipe for sorting data. There is no pipe for sorting data. We will see one pipe how we can sort the data. For example, now how to create pipe. There is another technique. You can add pipe by using CLI command. That is ng generate pipe and pipe name. Pipe name I will give as sorting. That means it will create a pipe for you. We can manually add, or you can generate by using command. Already I showed you manually adding previous. Let's generate with command. Open this pipes in terminal. And here we have to run the command. So ng generate pipe, and I will give the pipe name as sorting. So ng generate pipe sorting. And if you want to skip test, everywhere same. Skip test. I don't want testing related file here. Okay. Now a pipe is automatically generated for you. And if pipe is automatically generated, you can see that the pipe is defined here. You can see the sorting pipe is ready. Same. Whatever we have designed manually, the same it is having with it. We have two important imports. One is pipe, another one pipe transform. And we have pipe name as sorting. And it have a transform method. We will remove this. We will just write transform method manually. Transform method I am configuring here. Now this transform method, first it can take your data. Data, that means it is a sorting pipe. It can take the data, and data is any type array. That means we are expecting an collection, any type of array. You can configure any type of data. Okay, next. It can have a parameter called reverse. Reverse parameter is a Boolean type. It is a Boolean type. You can add any number of parameters like this. Now already you know the basics of TypeScript, that every parameter is mandatory, right? That means reverse parameter is compulsory, but I want it optional. If he want, he can reverse or normal. Then how to create as an optional parameter? We have to use a question mark. That means this parameter is optional. Data is compulsory, but reverse is optional. But when I apply this pipe, the data must be in ascending order. When I apply reverse, it should be in descending order. So it's very simple. What we have to do is, we have to just put a condition. If reverse, that means if reverse equal to true, right? If reverse by default, it verifies with true. If reverse is equal to true, then what should happen? First, it has to take the data and it should sort the data. it should sort the data. After sorting the data, it should take the data and display in reverse order. I hope you already learned array reverse function. How to sort array, how to reverse array, you already know in JavaScript. Array sort, array reverse. Why we cannot directly use reverse, you know, because in array, reverse method is not descending order. Reverse method is arranging in reverse order, not in descending order. That means how the values are arranged, they are arranged in reverse order. So first we have to sort, then we have to reverse. That means what it has to do is it should return the data. That means it should return the data. After reversing, it should return the data. If I don't do this, else what should happen? It should return the data directly by using sort. It should directly return by using sort. That means what should happen when I use reverse? When I use reverse, it will sort and reverse. If I don't use reverse, directly it will sort. That means it will be in ascending order if I directly use this sorting. It will be in descending order if I use reverse. And reverse is a parameter. I told you, you can use any number of parameters. But you know the rules that after optional parameter, there cannot be required parameter. All should be optional parameters. You know the basic rules of TypeScript. Now this is our own pipe with parameters and whatever you say. Now here we need to apply. I don't need to even register this because it is already registered in app module. Sorting pipe is already registered. Just I need to apply this. Let's go. So let's go to the HTML page, TS file. Temporarily what I will do here, I will create a collection called cities. Cities is an string type array, and in that I am adding some cities, and I am defining the cities here as suppose Delhi. So I am adding city as Bangalore. So here I am adding city as Hyderabad, and here adding city as Chennai. So like this I am adding some cities. So Mumbai, and I am adding the cities like this. Now I want to display all these cities. I want to display all these cities in the interface. I will just present all the cities here. That means I will put here cities, and let's create an ordered list item, and let's perform the iteration ng for let item of collection is cities, and we are printing every item here. That means every city is printed here in the same way. That means it is printing all the cities in the same way how you have stored. Okay, now I will do one more here. So I will put heading cities sorted. Okay, cities sorted. I will copy the same. I will copy the same here, but I want the cities to be sorted. So they are 2 times displayed. I want this list sorted. Then just we need to apply to this. We need to apply the pipe. What is it? Sorting. Sorting is the pipe, and I will save this, and you can see that it will be in ascending order. You can see, and it is in ascending order. It is in ascending order. So this also changes in ascending order. Why? Because it is going to affect the cities collection bidirectional. It is going to affect everywhere. Two-way binding like technique it will apply. So here, so I am just giving this now. That means this is sorted. That means it is arranging alphabetically B, C, D, G, H, M. I want this in reverse order. Then what to do? Here we need to put a colon. You know how to pass the parameters. Pipe parameters are passed with colon. And what is the parameter we are having? Reverse parameter. What type of value that parameter accepts? Boolean. That means if I pass it as true, that means now it should arrange that in reverse order. Mumbai, Hyderabad, Goa, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore. And if I make this as false, then it will be in sorting. Remember, this is not sorting false, it is sorting. False is for reverse. This is a parameter. Can we have multiple parameters? You can have any number of parameters. That depends on your requirement, your programming. So you need to use all the methods that are used for accessing the parameters and handling them. So this is nothing a special concept. Sometimes people who don't have complete technical knowledge on functions, methods and all, for them this is a complicated question in interview. Sir, in interview they asked how parameter pipe are used. They feel like it's a very complicated question, which is very simple thing. That means people who have general programming knowledge of working with functions, parameters, this is nothing at all. But this is a very complicated question for several even experienced people. So we have seen so many times people asked us, like 4 or 5 years experience they put, and they come with this question. That very tough question they asked, how to handle multiple parameters. That is very simple thing. If you know functions, parameters, TypeScript, then that is not a bigger concept here, right? You can use any number of parameters, it doesn't matter, right? That means you have a pipe, so with parameterized. Now, technically, so parameterized pipe is used for modifying the functionality of the pipe. Modify the example is this one. So we added sorting, then we have to use sorting dot pipe dot ts. In this is the code I have written. Already it generates everything for you. You have to just change the transform method. Next, we have to implement in any page. That means, so some component dot html page. First, you put some TS collection, some cities collection. This is the cities collection in TypeScript. Okay. And we have to go to component dot html, and there we can apply that pipe. Now here the pipe is applied in this way. If you want reverse, you can set it to true. Right? This is the parameterized pipe, and this is the custom pipe. That means we can create our own pipe for handling the data. Now I will give you one challenging task you try to do. So, which is very frequently asked at experience practical tests. So that is, you try, create a pipe for filtering data. Create a pipe for filtering data. Create a pipe for filtering the data. That means the concept is, so you define filter as a pipe, and into that you pass some value, right? Only that value related data should display. That means only that value related data must display. That means you need to define filter with some value. Only the value related data must display. That means, for example, I am using collection. Suppose you see, I am using, suppose products. Products is an array. In the products array, I apply filter, and here I put a string as footwear. That means only footwear products must come. That means products may belong to different category. That means it should filter based on category, and it will display all the products that belong to footwear. You try to create such filter. Now I don't need to tell you how to get only the products that belong to footwear. You already have array functions now. You have to use array methods, array functions, and you need to create a custom filter. Because why sorting filters are very much asked in interviews? Because in the early versions, when AngularJS came, not Angular, when AngularJS came, in AngularJS, they have given lot of pipes. At the time, we have pipes for filtering, sorting, pagination, limiting. But in the latest version, they removed all of them due to some technical issues. So, and that is the reason Angular developers who are following Angular from the beginning of Angular, they are used to pipes like sorting and filtering. Suddenly they are not there now. And that is the reason companies will regularly ask, like, create a pipe for filtering, create a pipe for sorting, because we need to use them regularly. That means in every location, employees data, students data, or some other data, filtering, sorting is a common task, right? That is the reason earlier they have to have such pipes, but due to various technical bugs, issues and all, they removed those pipes from the Angular library, and our developers are very much used to them, and suddenly they are not there. Then they have to build by themselves. We have to create custom pipes, right? So I already showed you two. One is sentence case, it is parameterless. Another one, sorting, it is parameterized. Now you try this pipe. That means how we can filter the data and handle the data, right? This is one task for you to try. This is all about the concept of working with pipes. And one pipe we left out, so that we will see later. What is it? Async. That we will see in the next level, because for that we need to learn some more points. So these are all the built-in pipes and custom pipes of Angular. So what is the main purpose? The purpose is for transforming the data, right? Now next important, after understanding pipes, now in Angular you need to know about Angular services. Angular services. So technically so many points are there. Remember, these topics what we highlighted as FAQs, these are all interview based. That means in usage they use regularly. That is the reason in interviews also you have to face a lot of questions on them. And at experience level, so many architectural based questions are asked. So you need to be strong in that, right? Now tell me, as a software developer, what is a service? What is a service? Service is not only related to APIs. What is a service in Angular? What is generally a service? So technically service is a predefined business logic. Technically service is a predefined business logic. What is the role of this predefined business logic? You can implement and you can inject, actually you can inject and implement implement into any application. You can inject and implement into any application. Actually, technically, so service is a set of factories. Service is a set of factories, and technically, factory is a set of related type of functions. And values. Factory is a set of related type of functions and values. That means service is a predefined business logic. That means it contains some functionality and data. You can use that in your application without writing it again and again. For example, best example I will tell you, suppose you are designing a form, registration form, login form you are designing, and those forms should not be used by robots. That means when you put a form in website, we have a threat that robots can use that form. They can log in, they can register. So to prevent robots, what we do? To prevent robots, we use CAPTCHA. What is CAPTCHA? CAPTCHA is an artificial intelligence program which identifies whether the user is a human or a robot according to the mouse movement and the keystrokes. Now, what do you say? Do you have any idea of artificial intelligence programming? You are an ordinary web developer. That means now will you sit and write an artificial intelligence program? Do you have that capacity to do? No, we can't do that. Then whose work is that? Somebody who knows artificial intelligence. Who know artificial intelligence, he designs CAPTCHA. Now what we do? They provide the CAPTCHA as a predefined service, and we just borrow and inject into our application and use it. That means if anybody asked you like, do you know how to write code for CAPTCHA? That is a foolish question, right? How do I write code for CAPTCHA? Nobody in the world can write until or unless he knows artificial intelligence. In Java, in .NET, in PHP, in Python, in full stack, anywhere you don't write code for CAPTCHA, you just use CAPTCHA service. CAPTCHA is a service. CAPTCHA is a service. For example, you see, suppose so many people provide like reCAPTCHA. reCAPTCHA, na? Yeah. This is Google reCAPTCHA. This is Google reCAPTCHA. You can see this is Google reCAPTCHA. And you see, it says that CAPTCHA is a free service. CAPTCHA is a free service that protects your site from spam and abuse. Now they already have this. You have to just use it. Not only Google, so many third parties will provide you, right? You can borrow and you can import and you can use it. Now, for example, suppose you are designing a website. In that website, user have to log in and use your website, but he is not interested in registration in your website. If user have to log in, he need to register first. But users are not interested in registering in your website. But without login, you don't want to allow. So they don't want to register, you don't want to allow without login. Then you can ask user, okay, don't register, use your Google account to login. Use your Facebook account to login. That means what? Facebook people will give you complete data access to you, that you will put Facebook login in your page. Then how Facebook credentials are verified? In your website, not in Facebook. How Google credentials are verified in your website, not in Google page. They don't go to Google page. They will verify Google credentials in your website only. Do you know what it is called as? It is also a service. Do you know the name of that service? Any idea? What is that service called as? That means allowing other people's logins, other domain logins in our site. What it is known as? That service is called as, any idea? That service is called as, we call that service as OpenID. We call that service as OpenID. These are very famous, very popular. You are learning JSP, Java, .NET, PHP, Python at experience level. They will ask, do you have an idea on CAPTCHAs, OpenIDs? They are very common in websites. That means, so you are building a web application and you don't know how to implement OpenIDs, then that is not great. That means OpenID, technically OpenID is used for such services. Now, technically, who is this? Right, Madhavi. Yeah, OpenID uses SSL. Right, OpenID uses SSL. SSL and all these are a part of OpenID. The service is called OpenID. We have CAPTCHAs, we have OpenIDs. Suppose you want such OpenID, Google will provide. Suppose I said Google, here I will say Facebook OpenID. So, and you see it will provide OOIDs. So this is Facebook OpenID. This is the Facebook OpenID. It will provide information for Facebook OpenID. Whatever library is required, you can build, you can download that library, you can install and you can use it. CAPTCHAs, OpenIDs, these are very common. Now very important is we provide these as service. We provide these as service. So technically, what is service? It is a predefined business logic. What you can do, you can inject and implement into any application. Now service is a set of factories. Factory is a set of related type of functions and values. In that case, in interviews, they may ask you like, if a factory is a set of functions and values, why can't we use a factory in application? Why can't we use a factory in application? So actually you see here, suppose what we discussed, the point is, suppose we have a factory, we have functions and we have values. These functions and values are actually, injected. They are injected into a service. And what we are doing is, in our application, wherever we want them, we are using a service in our application. The question is, why can't you use directly a factory? The question is, why can't you use directly a factory? So why you are using a service? That means why you are using here. This is a factory. Factory contains a set of functions. So why can't you use a factory? Why are you using a service? What do you think? This is very important question. Like, if factory is a set of functions and values, why can't we use a factory in application? Because factory uses single call mechanism. Factory uses single call mechanism. Single call mechanism. What is single call mechanism? Single call mechanism means every time when you need a function, you need to create an object. That means I need a function 10 times. I need 10 objects because the function will execute only once per object. Just like constructor, a function will execute only once per object. That means one object is created and the function is executed with the help of that object. Then again that object is destroyed. Again I want the same function. Again object need to be created. So every time when you need a function, you need to create an object. That means what is single call mechanism? Single call mechanism is nothing but object is required. Object is required. So every time to use a function, So object is required every time to use a function. So every time it is required to use a function. That is what actually single call mechanism is. Technically single call mechanism is. So what is the advantage of this service? That means what is the advantage of service? That is the problem. So if factory is set of values, why can't we use? Because it uses single call mechanism. Now what is the advantage of service? Service uses singleton mechanism. Service uses singleton. It uses a singleton pattern. Technically we call a singleton pattern. What is singleton pattern? I hope you learned in various programming languages. What is singleton pattern? So singleton pattern is nothing but only one object is created for a class. Only one object is created for a class, and through that object you can access the function any number of times. That means only once object is created and the same object is used across any number of requests. We call that mechanism as singleton. So can we use a factory directly in a application? You can use, but it is not recommended. You can use any library directly, but factories are not recommended directly to use in a application because factories uses single call mechanism. Now what is the advantage of service? Service uses a singleton pattern. Singleton pattern means object is created only once. That means one object can handle multiple requests. So one object can handle multiple requests, right? That means an object is created only once and the same object is requested across any number of times. That is the reason. So better to use a service instead of using an factory. That is the difference between a factory and service. It is a predefined business logic to handle. Now here so many technical points are there. Now how the service works? Actually service uses two major things. One is provider. Service uses provider and injector. Service uses a provider and an injector. That means two major components are responsible for handling service. One is provider and injector. So in interviews, as I told you, the questions will be around these concepts only. That means in interviews sometimes they may ask like, what is a provider? What is a provider? What is the role of provider? These kind of questions very hard for a fresher level. That means these are all experience questions. right? For a fresher, too much this is. That means you can't ask like these type of complicated questions to fresher. That is very complicated. That is not reasonable also actually. That means a fresher cannot remember or know all such in-depth concept. You can't expect from a fresher to have all this knowledge, right? But for an experience, you can't imagine an experienced person without the knowledge of this, right? We can't expect this knowledge from fresher. We never expect. In interviews also we ignore. If he knows a service, that is enough for him, right? We don't want him to know the architecture behind service. That is mandatory for experienced people. So what is a provider? Actually, provider is nothing but it is a DI component. DI component, that means dependency injection component, dependency injection mechanism, DI component. It is a DI component used to locate service in memory. So what is the role of provider? That means services are loaded into memory. When services are loaded into memory, we have to look up for the service and access the service from memory. And who is responsible for doing that? Provider. That means a provider's responsibility is to look for the service you want from the memory, pick up that service. Searching for service in memory is done by provider. A provider is responsible for locating. It is responsible for locating service in memory. That means in the memory, so many services may be there, and locating the required service for you, that is the role of provider. After locating the service, so what is injector? So again, same, it is a DI component, which is responsible for injecting the service into component. Component is your Angular component here, right? It is your Angular component. It is responsible for injecting the service into the component. First finding the service, after that injecting into the component. Finding is done by provider, and injecting that into application is done by injector. That is the reason. So where to find, it is done by provider, and where to inject, that is decided by injector. So entire service, any service works with two important components. So one is provider, another one injector. That means if anybody asked you like, have you used any dependency injection in Angular? Have you learned any dependency injection in Angular? What do you say? Before this service, have you learned any dependency injection? So before this service, have you learned any dependency injection? Everywhere you have learned. Creating a component, creating a custom component. You have seen materials. In materials, we have ready-made components. What we are doing, we are injecting that component into our component, and we are using the functionality. So it is a ready-made service, na? That means it is a ready-made component service which you are injecting into your component and you are using. Just now, just before this concept, you created a pipe. And you are injecting the pipe into your component and using. That means in the background, it is using dependency injection. That means pipes are using dependency injection, components are using dependency injection. In service you will feel it because you will create it, right? In others also dependency injection is there, creating custom components, creating custom pipes, and creating services. These all use dependency injection. All are implicitly internally using dependency injection. In service you will particularly find it. That means in service you will see it practically. That means you will see practically that concept. That means, see, now I will show you a simple point here. That means how this injector, providers, all these options are handled. See, how do we create a service? Let's see here. To create a service, I am just doing this here. See, already, yeah, fine. See, let's go to a app folder and add another folder called services. I am adding services folder. I am adding a new service. I am adding a new file. So that is suppose capture.service.ts. capture.service.ts. I am creating a simple capture.service. Now it is a class. We have to use export class capture service. This is a class we have designed. Now usually service contains values and functions, right? Some functionality. That means now we will create a method called generate code. That is a method. What this generate code method have to do is it should generate a random code and return. Captcha is a random code. It should generate a random code and return. So you see now here I am defining as suppose var. So var a is equal to math.random will return a random number into 10. Because math.random is a JavaScript function which returns random number that starts with 0.7. Then we multiply with 10, it will return a positive integer. Okay, similarly I will generate a 6-digit random number. I will generate a 6-digit random number A, B, C, D, E and F. 6-digit random number. And what I will do is I will create a code which will bind all these 6 random numbers into one. That means we will use one more math.round. We will round A. Otherwise it will be 4.5, 4.8. I want 5. I want 4. I don't want decimals. So that is the reason I am using round. Okay. Math.round A, round B. Okay. And math.round C. I'm just separating with space. I'm separating with space. It is D and it is E and it is F. Okay, we are separating all these here. After that, we will return this code. That means whenever you call the function generate code, it will return a random code. It is a general JavaScript function to return random code. Okay. Now, this is not a service. This is not a service. It is an ordinary class. How you make it as a service? So, you need a provider and injector. You need two people, provider and injector. So, we have to import. So, we need to import injectable. We need to import injectable from Angular core. Injectable from Angular code, and you have to give an, so this injectable is enough actually. Now we need to mark it. So we have to mark it by using injectable, and this injectable actually uses a provider. It uses a provider. The provided in indicates actually this is provider. It is asking where to look. What is the role of provider? Role of provider is to look for service. That means it is asking, where do I look for this service? That means you have to tell provided in root. Provided in root. Root means in the root level of application. Root level of application means provided in the current project. Current project. There is another option. Instead of root, you can use provided in. You can use provided in any. That means if you use root, it will be in the current project. If you use any, that means it can be from any another project. It can be from any another project, but it should be in the same workspace. Another project in the same workspace. I told you that we are working in workspace. In workspace, we can add multiple projects. But if there is a project outside this workspace, then you have to use platform. That means which is not completely in our workspace. It is completely remote, some remote project. Then you have to use platform. If it is in the workspace itself, then you can use any. If it is in only the current project, then you have to use what? Root. That means where to look for that. We have to define. There is another technique. Instead of, if I don't give this provider, it will show error saying that provider is unable to find your service. Provider is unable to find your service. That means you can remove from here, then you can give at another level. You see app module. In app module.ts, here also you have providers. You have providers. What you can do is, here you can mention the service name. That means a provider come to picture into locations at the time of loading application or at the time of you are requesting your service. Which one is better? Some services need to get ready when your application starts. Then you have to give at the provider of app module. It is not required if you want to access only when it is requested. I don't want it to load into memory. I want it to load into memory only when it is requested. In that case, better to give the provider here. I will show you both. We have to say provided in, what is it? Root. Provided in root. Okay. Now this is ready. Capture service is ready. Capture service is ready. We manually added a service. We have to use this service. How to use the capture service? Let's go. How to use the capture service? Let's go to the component. There is a component login. You see, there is a login component. In this login component, I want to use anything login, register. In any component, we want to use it. That means we can use that service anywhere. Suppose there is a register component. In the register component, I want to use that service. I will keep this register component in the startup. In the app module, we will start with the register component. In index also, I will give register, app register. So our application starts with register component. You can see application starts with register component. This is register component. Now what I want to do is, in this component, go to register component. In the register component, I want to use the capture service. If I want to use the capture service here in this component, we have to inject the service into the component at the time of creating the component. That means you need a constructor. Now in the constructor, I am configuring the service. I am declaring private. I am creating private. I will give as capture. It is of what type? It is of type capture service. We have to implement that capture service and use it. Now why in many interviews, they ask this question also. We have seen for so many experienced people, they ask this question, why you use a service in the constructor like this? Why you write the service in the constructor? Why can't you write on init? Or why cannot you create an object for it? We don't want to create an object for it. Why? Because so we want it to use singleton pattern. Singleton pattern means object must be created at the time of loading this component. At the time of loading the component, object must be created, means we have to use in constructor only. In constructor, when you define this, it will be creating at the time of loading the component, and it will be available across the component anywhere to use. Why to give it private? If I don't use private, it is not accessible outside constructor. It is not accessible outside constructor. Private or public or protected, anything you can use. But if I use private, then it is accessible only to this class. If you don't use private, it is not accessible outside this scope. Outside the constructor, it is not accessible. To make it accessible outside, what we have to do? We have to configure it as private. Okay, now what I am doing is, I will do one more work. What it is, I will put here a property called code. And code is any type. It is any type, and initially it is null, and you have to keep it as null. Or we are expecting code as a string type because we designed as a string. It is an empty code. Now what should happen is on initialization. That means ng on init. We have to use on init. To use on init, you know already, you have to implement, right? We have to implement. So on init, we have to implement on init. When you are implementing on init, you have to configure ng on init. On init, what we will do is this dot code is equal to this dot captcha dot generate code, which is going to return a code. It is going to return a code. We have to access that and store it here. And this code I want to display. In register. In register, I will put a data term, and here verify code, and I will give data definition. Here I will write that code here. I want to access the code here, and you can see that in the register form the code is generated. And of course I can put a refresh button and all. Suppose you see refresh the page every time it comes with a new code. That means I am refreshing the page every time it comes with a new code. That means we created a service which can generate random code. It can generate random code. We created a service which can generate a random code. Now very important here, observe carefully. It is working fine. Let's go to captcha service and remove this provider. Okay, remove this provider. That means your service is loaded, but it is not located. It is not located. Whose responsibility to locate? Provider. Have you mentioned the provider? No. In that case, you will get an error here. And you can see when I inspect the error here, console, you can see the error. Error is very clear. It says that, so the injector, null injector error, no provider. No provider for captcha service. I told you provider can be at application level. That means what I will do here, I will go to app module. Here I will inject the service. I am not injecting the service. See, I am not giving provider here. I am giving the provider here in app module. What is the service name? Captcha service. I am giving this to the provider here, and you can see now it is working again. It is working here. That means you need a provider. It can be in the service or it can be in app module. What is the advantage of app module? What is the advantage of configuring in app module? You can configure all services that need to get ready because it's arena. That means in your component, you may be using 5-6 services. All services need to get ready before you start the component. Then you give here. But this is very risky because this is always heavy to application. If you are not using the service, then no use. That means unnecessarily you are loading a service and you are not using it. That means better define the provider in the service level. Why? Because it will be loaded only when it is required. It will be loaded only when it is required. We have two options. If I remove from here, then again it will show the problem. It cannot work. Again it will display that problem. You can see that it is saying injector issues are there. Now what I will do is I will go to capture service and here I will define the provider. Here I will define the provider. What you are doing provided in where we have to define. I am giving the provided. See, as of now 3 will work because currently you are using inside the project. There is no difference. If you are accessing from other projects and using there, you will see that happens. As of now, root or platform or any will work because you are using within the project. So you can see it is working fine. So we created a service. Which can provide reusability across the requests. Now what is advantage? In a login form, I want captcha. In a registration form, I want captcha. In change password, I want captcha. Account recovery, I want captcha. Everywhere will you write it? Everywhere we will not write it. We will just inject and use it. A service is created so that you can inject in every location and you can use it. That means now this is the service. We can inject into any component and use it. Wherever you want, just you have to inject it. So by using this technique, you have to inject. You can inject and you can access and use it. And service can contain lot of methods, not only one. Currently, I created a service with one method. Next, I will show you another example. We can create a service with multiple methods. Which method you want, you can use. That means we will see how to use a service for data. That means using data binding, interacting with the data, APIs, how services are used with API data. So in real world requirement, we use services like this and we use services to communicate with the data, right, with APIs. That we'll see tomorrow. So tomorrow, one more time, I will explain this. Tomorrow, we will learn how to create a service to communicate with APIs. We will see that. How do we communicate with APIs? Okay, right.